Awesome. So I'm here with my good friend Corey Christensen. Met him. He's actually my personal therapist that I met, and helped me along the way in my journey. And I just want to sit down and have a conversation, man. Kind of get to know you as a person, and what you've gone through and how you've got here, man. So I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do this.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. So before we dive into, kind of your profession, your successes, things you've gone through, I wanna kind of get to know you on a personal level and on a deeper level. So take it back. I want a little get to, know about you, Corey, like where you're from, what was growing up like, and where did you grow up and kind of your experiences starting as a young kid.
Yeah, so I had a pretty good childhood. My parents split up when I was 11 or 12, and that had a way bigger impact on me than I realized until later in my life. So basically, it was like what really kind of inspired me to be a therapist is me and my mom had a pretty tough relationship. She was like borderline abusive when I was growing up, and that had a big impact. That the biggest impact that had on me was in my 20s when I started dating women, and I started noticing I was dating women that were all like my mom, emotional. I was like, what is going on? This is crazy. And through just kind of trying to like figure it out and figuring out how to change and figuring out how to have better relationships, it really kind of drove me into this kind of profession. um,
Okay.
so yeah, that's kind of how I started. I just started learning so much. I started figuring some things out that really helped me change um, some of my emotional habits and some of the way that I viewed myself, and it just like worked. It really felt a difference, and then that kind of spurred me to do a master's program and start getting into therapy.
Okay. That's awesome, man. So growing up, where did you grow up at?
Boise, Idaho.
Okay.
And dude, it's just gotten so much cooler than when I was growing up.
Yeah.
I went back there like a couple weeks ago. I'm like, dang, this place is actually awesome.
Yeah. That's
Growing up, I
crazy,
was like,
man.
yeah.
Ready to get out, man.
Hmm.
No, so it's awesome. So at 11, you said your parents got divorced.
Hmm.
Who were you raised by? Did you have split custody? Mainly your mom.
I was mostly raised by my mom, and yeah, and it was. I was lucky. I had a really cool group of friends that was like my family growing up, because I just didn't feel any kind of meaningful friendship or connection with my mom. We were just like, at each other's throats,
Yeah.
So just, yeah, so that's what it was kind of like.
Okay. Now, growing up, obviously spending a lot of time with friends and, not having a relationship with your mom or a really good one. Did it cause you to get in trouble? Were there ways that were doing, or kind of, what did it, were you acting, certain ways, or, how was your
Yeah.
kind of like teenage years because of that?
Yeah, good question. I think about this all the time because this comes. I see a lot of myself in people that I work with, and what I didn't realize at the time was what I was lacking inside. I was seeking outside. So I was lacking this kind of feeling of love or approval from my own mom. And then I was really seeking that hard, through other people or through, drugs or, partying and stuff, just wanting so badly just to feel accepted, because I didn't feel that from my
Okay.
own parents, so it's like, and that's something that plays out a lot for most of us that we don't realize, I think.
Yeah. So going out now, I assume you graduated high school.
Yep.
Okay. So after you graduated high school, what was your kind of next steps and journey in life?
Yeah, so I actually moved to Utah, and I was so my experience of moving was basically, I remember one day waking up And it was just after like me and my friends threw a huge party, and I woke up and I was walking in the living room, and there's like beer bottles everywhere, and just like the house was trashed. And I just felt like this deep, like emptiness, like it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I just knew I needed a change. So I literally, like a couple days later, I just packed up, moved to Utah and with my dad. And I didn't really, I didn't, I knew I wanted to feel more fulfilled, and I knew I wanted to feel better, but I didn't really have an idea of what that was going to look like. And I actually started, where the starting point for me was, I actually started going back to church, and I just started feeling, just to feel some kind of goodness and like light, I think for me, compared to this like deep emptiness and that I was feeling, was just like, it was like a night and day. It changed me almost like immediately.
Yeah.
Uh, and then and then I actually went, so in the church that I was going to, they do you have the option to do like a 2 year like mission to go to a different country or wherever, and like help people for 2 years. And I did that, and it was just it was such an awesome experience for me personally.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. So now my question is, so you felt like, this guilt, this emptiness, and you woke up one day, kind of had a realist experience, and you're like, you know what, it's time to make a change. But
Mm-hmm.
what do you think um actually led to going through with that change? Because I feel like a lot of people wake up and they're like, dude, this isn't it. This isn't where I'm supposed to be. And but they don't make that step, right? You made that step where you're like, dude, this ain't it. You packed your stuff up and you're like, I'm gonna move to Utah and I'm gonna live with my dad and kind of change course. What do you
Mm-hmm.
think, that was contributed to, and why people obviously also don't make that leap?
So your question is like, why is it that some people feel pretty empty or stuck, but they just kind of like stay there? They don't actually make the change.
Yeah, like, you made that leap, you packed your stuff up and you had action, right? You had action to make that change, which a lot of people don't have that action. So it could be two questions in one. Why were you able to make that, and why aren't people, you know, willing and able to do that most of the time?
Yeah. Uh, well, for me personally, I think I was pretty lucky. I think one of the reasons why most people don't make those changes is they don't have another option. Like I was lucky. Like I had a basement waiting for me in Utah, and it wasn't going to cost me any money. I could just go there and kind of like get a fresh start. Um, but so two things. I think people don't feel like they have another option, even though they might have another option. They just feel like they don't. And then the second thing is, I think people are so disconnected from what they're feeling. They have emptiness or negative feelings come up for them, but they don't they ignore them. They avoid them. I that was a moment where I felt empty, and I just knew that I needed to do something about it. I didn't ignore it. I like listened to it.
Hmm.
And so those two things, I think people feel like they don't have another option. And um, what I've mentioned to you, and what I talk to people all the time in therapy, is like the number one root cause of almost all of the things that we struggle with is avoiding emotions, like
Hmm.
not like, yeah, just basically dismissing them. And these emotions are so valuable. They're it's actually our body trying to tell us things that we need in our life to have more fulfillment,
Hmm.
to live a better life.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome, man. So then, you go and you make changes, you live with your dad. Now, how long were you living with your dad before you went and served your 2-year mission for your church?
I think it was like a year.
Okay.
I just kind of got back on my feet again. I became I think, more intentional about trying to do objectively like good things for myself. Um, like I remember before I started like partying and doing that whole thing in high school, I remember having a thought or feeling that was like, you know what? I don't know if this is going to make me happy, but I just want to see. I want to give it a shot. I want to just go for it. And then I did that for a couple years. And then I had this experience where I just like, it was so obvious that it wasn't
Hmm.
bringing me like happiness and fulfillment. And so I kind of went the other way, you know. I feel like that's what this emptiness, this guilt was trying to tell me, is like, hey, what you're doing is not in line with like who you are,
Yeah.
you know. So I really made an effort to try to do the opposite of being selfish, and the opposite of like partying and stuff, which was the starting point for me, was like finding some kind of positive community and putting myself in a position to be positively influenced by other people when I wasn't doing that at all before.
Yeah. So when you go on your 2-year mission, you come home, and what's your life after that? What was, did you immediately jump into college?
Mhm.
What kind of led, you into obviously going and getting your degree to, obviously where you're at now?
Yeah, so the mission was, so I went to Ireland for 2 years, and it's a pretty depressing place. it rains it rains all the time there. But I was in a so I was in a position on my mission where we do this thing. So there's a bunch of missionaries. They're all trying to help people and talk about God to people, and like, you know, helping people's yards and just service stuff and whatever. And so we would do this thing where we would go with other missionaries, and my responsibility was to like stay with them for 24 hours, and then to we call it splits, to do it for 24 hours, and then at the end of the 24 hours to give them some feedback on like what they could do to be a better person or a better missionary. And when I started doing that, that giving other people feedback, it just was like something happened, man. I just like it. I just felt like it was very natural for me. The feedback that I got from other people is like, dude, what you said or how you said it or the way that you helped, it just like it's helped me so much. And it just kind of clicked. I'm like, this is like my thing. Like, this is what, like, there was a moment where I just kind of like, it's hard to explain, but I just kind of like knew, like, this is what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And so I think the principle of that is like some people really struggle with like finding a purpose and finding out like what they're supposed to do with their life. And I feel like part of the answer to that is if you just start committing to helping other people, like service, going out, what it does is it helps you start to recognize when you're truly helping other people, it really starts to help you recognize what your own gifts and talents are. And that's a really key part in helping you know what you should do with your life to like find purpose and to be happy. So it doesn't surprise me that's when it kind of happened for me, when I was like, you know, committed my life for 2 years to help other people. And you know, it kind of lined up,
Yeah.
you know. And
Yeah.
I honestly just, that was such a strong experience for me. I just never turned back. I just kind of came home, and for the next 7 years, kind of, we just went to school.
Yeah. No, it's awesome, man. So I mean, you found your purpose, but I feel like a lot of people, we find our purpose, but we don't have the drive to accomplish it, right? So you come home and you just mentioned, so you went to school for 7 years, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So I mean, I'm not a college grad, right? I went to school and I was sitting there doing, I was like, F this, bro, I'm out. I want to go, be a businessman and open business. But, obviously you had your purpose and the drive to go through 7 years of school. So I want to talk about, your schooling. Where'd you go to school? Trials you kind of went through, stuff that pushed you, great experiences you had, maybe some not so great experiences, but what ultimately pushed you to getting your degree?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. I think, so I went to UVU, and then I got my master's down in Arizona, at a private college that like specialized in psychology stuff. But I feel like, and this has been a big thing that's been coming up with a lot of people I've been working with lately, but it's like, imagine that you are like in the middle of the ocean and like you're on a boat and you see a storm coming and you have no idea what direction to go. Like you could start working really hard and start paddling, but you have no idea if you're going to make it to land going that direction. You want to make it to this really cool island that has like beautiful women and music and coconuts, and you want to make it to that awesome place, but you have no idea where that's at. You can't see it. So the problem with most people is, in order for us to start paddling and to get out of the storm or whatever, we need to know, we need to have some kind of a vision of, we need to know that if I paddle south, it's going to lead me to where I want to go. And so that's why so many people start college and they're like, dude, this sucks. Like, what am I even doing? Like, where's this even going? Like, I'm out.
Yeah.
You know, there's a really cool biblical scripture, and it basically says, without vision, people perish. And I think that's very true. And this is a big thing that's missing in people's life, is being able to find this purpose, or this purpose, this kind of vision of where their life is going to go and what's going to make them happy. People, honestly, there's a big question mark for most people with that. And that's why psychedelics have gotten so popular the last 10 years. I think it's a way of people trying to find more purpose.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. So you entered college, you had your vision, right? And which creates drive. Because I personally, I don't believe in motivation, right? I believe motivation's like
Mhm.
sugar. It's very temperate. It's good until it ain't good, and then when it ain't good, you're gonna stop. But basically,
Right.
you have that drive to get you all the way through school. Now, was there any time in school that you really struggled and questioned, like, man, do I really want to go through with this? Or basically, with your vision and your drive, where you just nose to the ground, you got through your 7 years of college?
Yeah, I don't think it's realistic for someone to have just one cool experience and then that to last for 7 years, or even 7 months, or sometimes even 7 days. And so I think it's about, okay, so one of the things that I talk to a lot of my clients about, and I try to practice myself, is that every single emotion that we have is a messenger with a message. It's our inner spirit or soul trying to tell us what we need. And so if we talk about positive emotions for a second, so what does it mean if we have feelings like peace, or we just feel really good, or we feel calm, or we feel good or at peace about something? Well, that's God or our body basically saying, like, yes, like, this is the direction you should go, or like, yes, this is right for you. And people really struggle. I don't think people put enough emphasis on these type of emotional or spiritual experiences. Like, these positive emotions cannot be wrong. Um, there's a saying in Middle Eastern culture, there's one word that they use to describe this, and it's called maktub, which basically means, like, it is written. So when we're praying or meditating on a question that we really need an answer to know what we should do in our life, and if we have any positive feelings that come up in regards to that, that's God or our body basically saying, like, yes, like, it's written, like, that's what's going to happen, like, do it. Like, and we'll need to check in with that. I think we'll need to have some regular experience, like maybe once a month. We'll need that reminder of the vision and like where we're going to keep going. You
Yeah.
know, so it's kind of a spiritual thing, and I think that's what's missing for people, is their people are really disconnected in general, emotionally and spiritually. And when you're spiritually disconnected, I don't think it's possible to have purpose, or I don't think it's possible to have meaningful purpose in your life if you're spiritually disconnected, because you're just paddling that boat, and you don't, or you're seeking the wrong things. You're just seeking money or material things, or things that you think will make you happy, or things that the culture says will make you happy, but like we know they don't actually bring happiness.
Yeah, and I want to dig into something that you talked about. Talking about spiritual happiness. Like, what is spiritual happiness? What does that mean to have spiritual happiness? Because there's a lot of people that believe in God, don't believe in God, believe in different gods. Some that believe in Jesus Christ, Muhammad, whatever it may be. There's so many religions out there. But what does it mean to have that spiritual purpose?
Spiritual happiness means being able to have an avenue where you can ask questions and actually get answers. It's meant to be a relationship. Like, so for me and you, we have a relationship. We're talking right now. You're asking me questions. I'm chatting, and you're doing a great job of that. And so, but when you ask a question to me, you don't have to wait 2 months for me to respond. Like, how good of a relationship would that be if you texted me a question, and every single time it took me about 2 months to respond? Like, wouldn't be a very good relationship. It'd be a distant one. And so our relationship with God, or our relationship with the universe or spirituality, we need to feel connected. We need to feel like it's an actual relationship where we can have a conversation and actually get answers and get direction. Otherwise, we're going to be lost at the sea, not knowing where to paddle.
Yeah. No, that's interesting, man. Because I think for me, right, I don't pray a lot, but I constantly, when I need help, I'll say, God, I believe in God, right? God, help me. Can you help me with this? But I believe, for me, I'm just a man of action. Like when I get my thoughts and I feel something, dude, I just act on it. I just go, right? I'm like, hey, I think this is it. Let's go with that. And if it wasn't it, or whatever, I don't dwell on it because I'm a very positive person, right? I have a mission, I have a goal of stuff I want to accomplish, and I feel like as I think or I ponder and I dwell, like I'm like, okay, this is the best bet to go. And necessarily, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not praying, but I believe myself that it's it's coming from a spirituality or coming from maybe it's myself, but I feel like it's the right thing to do because I believe God's on my side. Necessarily, I don't pray and ask God for help, but I know that like everything I do, like he has an impact in it.
Totally. Well, God really trusts you to do something about it, you know. And so, I think I think of this visual a lot where, God's like at the beginning, he's like, "Hey, I want to help you go in a good direction in your life." And so start pedaling your bike with the training wheels on it. Start going, this is a good way for you to go. And we start off with the training wheels, and he has like our hand, he has like his hand on our back. Over time, he starts to trust us more. He's like, dang, this Brad guy's getting pretty good at doing life. He's getting pretty good at riding his bike. So let's take these training wheels off. I don't need my hand on your back anymore. You know, you just let me know if you need any help. You let me know if you're struggling with what direction to go in, and I'll help you. But yeah, just like start cruising that bike around and have fun, and treat people good, and make good decisions, and I'll be here to help you, kind of thing. So I think that's what it's supposed to be like. I think we can, so what I say to a lot of clients is like, well, as I say, there's certain moments where someone might feel very sad from like a loss, or sadness because their business failed or something. There's some real sadness there. I think that's a key moment when we can always get some, like, have a conversation with God, where we can always, have an actual conversation and get some feedback and stuff, which can be good. But yeah, man, you're a good example of God trusting you, and yeah, he's letting you kind of ride where you want to go.
No, I like that, man. I like that perception. Now, I know there would be a question that a lot of people would ask, right? People that have been through a lot of trials, a lot of struggles, who have a hard time believing if God's truly there, or they say, "Oh, God doesn't listen to me," right? What would you say, as a therapist and stuff, to someone who doesn't really have that relationship with God, how to, who maybe doesn't is in disbelief that God will answer your prayers, or that, not even God, just a higher power or the universe. Where would you tell them to start?
Well, first off, I would say it's really normal to feel that way when you're really struggling with things, because we can't separate spirituality and emotion. Like, if we're really struggling with some serious negative feelings and we don't know how to work through those, um, sometimes it's really hard for God to break through that. Um, a good way to view negative feelings or just pain that is there maybe from our past is a good way to view that is like internal fog. Okay, so imagine being on a hill and you're trying to read a sign that's 500 feet away, but like there's a bunch of fog in between you and that sign. um, Even if God wanted to tell you something, what he's going to do, he's going to write it on that sign. But guess what, like, we're not going to be able to read it, we're not going to be able to see it, we're not going to be able to recognize it. And so um, there's a lot of negative emotion that if we don't know how to resolve it, it builds up inside of us, and it creates this internal fog, and it really affects how we see ourselves and the world. And so my advice to somebody like that would be like, either find a really good therapist and start working through some of your emotions, uh, or start learning how to listen to your emotions better, which is a very general and difficult thing to do. That's something that is like what I specialize in, and like what we specialize at our practice is listening to emotions and letting go of them so that you can see more clearly.
Okay. Now, say somebody doesn't want to meet with a therapist, right? Is there a book out there that you would recommend that is a good read, um, that can really help tie into, understanding more of your emotions?
No. Yes, there's a lot of general like feedback about emotions that can be helpful. I'm actually working on writing a book right now because there's a lot of lack of information about out there about specific practical application. People in the psychology or self-help world, they like to talk really abstractly. Basically, as an example, they like to say, hey, if you're emotionally struggling, what you need to do is you need to feel your emotions. So start doing that, and then that'll start to help. And it's like, well, that's not really the best advice, because that's only true. Like, there's 11 negative emotions. It's only good to feel like 3 of those. All emotions are good to recognize and to learn from, but we only really want to be sitting and feeling like 3 of those. So if you start to feel some of the other ones, it's like things can start getting worse. So there's just a lot of lack of understanding of what actually works, and just detailed and specific practical application for it. So, but for maybe a good starting point for people, a couple books that I really like are The Alchemist is a good book. It's kind of a story version of how to find purpose. And then another good book is called Letting Go. I don't remember the author on that, but that one gets a little bit more specific. I mean, that one's pretty dry though. That's like reading a textbook. So, I don't know. Someone will have to be patient with that one, but yeah, man, like that's one of my main motivations for finishing this book I'm working on. I'm almost done. Um, to Yeah, just to have more practical application. Um, and maybe just a thought on that, man. It's like the biggest gap in mental health. The reason why people either some people have a good experience in therapy, a lot of people don't, unfortunately. And the reason why, one of the big reasons why, is the biggest gap in mental health is a lack of practical application. If you go and see a therapist and he says, "Hey, you really need to work on your emotions. You need to get better at that." It's like, "Cool, thanks, man. How do I do that though?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't even know how to do that in my own life. So why don't you just talk to me about it and I'll listen and maybe you'll figure it out." And the client's like, "Well, that's dumb. I can just talk to friends. Like, I'm not going to come in here anymore." You know, but if somebody goes and sees a therapist that actually has practical application and things that are actually going to help them because they've anyways, then they'll keep going. So there's a there's just not enough practical application in this abstract world of like spirituality and emotion, and that's what we're all about. Is it doesn't help change anyone to talk about it abstractly. You need steps. You need actual practical application.
Hmm. Yeah, you need that direction. You need to be able to do, to get to the root of the problem,
Totally,
right?
totally.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And now I want to kind of dig into you. So you graduated college. Now, I don't know anything about therapy degrees, but did you graduate in like a specific type of therapy, or do you just get a general, like, what is your profession? Like, what do you specialize in and how did you get that?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to be a therapist, so getting the master's was the way to go with that. I could have got my doctorate, but that's more focused on like teaching, maybe at colleges and stuff, and I just wasn't really interested in that, because it can get pretty political and just kind of dumb. But yeah, so I got my master's in clinical mental health counseling. And there's a few other ones that if somebody's interested in going that route, there's like marriage family therapy that you can also do, or social work. They all can kind of get you to the same place of being a therapist. The only difference is just like a few different classes that you would take in your master's program. But yeah, I went the clinical mental health route.
Okay. And
And
now,
I'll just say on that, it's like probably about, I used probably about 3% of what I learned from school to actually help people in therapy, because school is all about the theory and the very abstract principles, very little practical application. Everything that I've learned that I feel really confident in, that I'm going to be writing in the book, has been what I've learned from people over the last 9 years of being a therapist. And I've come to learn that there's general there's specific steps, there's these themes that work for everybody to heal or to feel better in their life, regardless of race, culture, background. There's things that work for everybody, and that's what I'm super interested in.
okay. So you've been practicing therapy for 9 years.
Yep.
Now I want to get into kind of your business aspect, right? Because obviously, man,
Sure.
you got to be able to create a business. You got to be able to bring clients in. You got to be able to do all that. So now, um, do I know you're in a firm. Do you own it? Are you a partner? Do you rent a room? Did you out of college? Where did you kind of start? Like, what are you kind of doing in the business aspect of being a therapist?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So yeah, I own Origins Therapy. So it's me, and then I believe there's 5 other therapists that work on my team. And yeah, it's been good. It's been more challenging than I would have anticipated, just because um, I I think I naturally see people's gifts and qualities and kind of their best, but sometimes that doesn't always. I mean, when I hire a therapist, sometimes I maybe don't focus enough on where some of their gaps are, and so the biggest challenge has been just like, I think like any business owner, like hiring quality, really, really high quality people that are good with retention and good at doing their job, basically. And it's been I've got a pretty good group right now, but it's definitely been that's been the biggest challenge for sure.
Yeah. And what made you want to start a business? Because you easily could have either just done your own practice and just you by yourself, not have a team, or two, you could have went and worked in a group somewhere. So what made you want to open up your business and actually be a business owner?
Yeah, so I've always been really motivated So I used to do sales before I was a therapist, and I mostly did sales just because I was going to school full time, and I just wanted to make the most amount of money by doing the least amount of work, you know? And so that was good for what it was. But yeah, I've always been really motivated by helping people, but I'm also motivated to make money as well. And so I think those are supposed to, if somebody wants them to, I think they can definitely work together. So having a practice was um, mostly because I wanted to spread my influence out more and train therapists and help them apply what I've seen work really well for people for clients. But then also there's financially made sense.
Yeah.
And so those are the two biggest reasons.
No, that's awesome, man. And so, you're a business owner, you got a team under you, working with therapists. Now, obviously, you're writing a book. I want you to, this is years in the making, right? So what made you decide to write a book, continue writing the book, and, obviously be about to finish? What instilled you to always, to keep going?
Yeah, so I've actually finished it once or twice, and then I'm actually I'm maybe too much of a perfectionist, but I'm kind of redoing the whole thing again, and I think this will be the last time, and I'm just gonna publish it. But yeah, I think the main motivator was what we were talking about earlier. Is like it's like if the principles and skills and emotional and spiritual knowledge was already out there and already readily available, like obviously I wouldn't be writing the book because I would just refer people to like check out these other books or materials. But it's like obviously I feel like there's a specificity to what we're doing over here and what I've learned from people that is just I feel like is just invaluable. So that's why I'm writing the book is um, mostly to help clients that I see have a good resource. Um, my other main motivation for that is we're actually in the process of opening up like a wellness center. So this is like a pretty large scale, like um, alternative therapy. Like, so the vision of it is like you walk in, it's a pretty grand, amazing, like nature immersion space. And then there's going to be therapy, of course, but there's going to be a lot of other stuff in there, like an ice room, sauna. Like during the winter in Utah, people struggle with like seasonal depression more than some other states. So like some light therapy in there, yoga, a bunch of physical activity stuff, and then like a nature room and like a cafe and stuff. So yeah, it's a pretty big project. So that the book is gonna we I just want yeah, I basically feel like I have a strong message and a lot of specifics that I've just seen help me a lot and help people change their life. And it's like I wanted to be able to just get that out to as many people as possible. So that's huge. And then I'm actually going to be stepping away from therapy more in the next year or two because I want to get into more like doing bigger events, training. I want to start breaking into the probably the corporate space at some point soon. So yeah, those are some of my goals coming up.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. It's awesome to hear, like, what I'm saying, like just the progress and the trajectory of your life, things you've gone through, achieving, getting it, and then continuing to always build and grow. Because for me, right, I feel like I have like a never satisfied mentality, which means I've learned now that I'm always blessed and grateful. I'm grateful for where I'm at today. I'm happy for where I'm at today, but I know I got a whole of a hell lot more to go and to
Totally.
give. And it's
Yeah,
great to hear, man, like of not stopping. You know what I'm saying? Because we have so much, we have one life to live, and a lot of people, man, could get comfortable, and you're able to, find, you know, get married, have a stable career and a house, and then that's it, man. People kind of just go through the motions and live like that. What what do you think the main cause for you and the drive to keep going and to keep building? Like, what instills in you to keep striving for more?
Well, first off, I appreciate you saying that. And the biggest, so the one of the biggest things I've learned from being a therapist is progress is happiness. If you want to feel contentment in your life and you genuinely want to be happy, we have to continue to make progress in things that actually matter. And if we're not, guess what? We're not feeling content and we're not feeling good about how we're living our life. I've actually learned a lot from you in this way. You've always been super driven, and it's there's a balance. You got to make sure there's things that are more important. Like in my opinion, like my wife and my kids are more important, and I have all these goals in my career and helping other people, but you know, making sure I've got time for that is, I don't think there's anything more important, and so that's been a struggle, with anyone that's, as a business owner. I think they can relate with that, but yeah, man, progress is happiness.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. Now I want to get into some questions, as an outsider to a therapist, right? Because
Sure.
even myself, right? I always thought like, dude, therapy's for weak people. Therapy doesn't work. People don't need therapy. So my question is, for you as a therapist, who needs therapy and who can benefit from therapy, and why?
I think everyone, man, anyone that is genuinely interested in improving their life can really benefit from therapy. And honestly, I don't consider myself, like, even though I'm a therapist, I'm not necessarily like a huge therapy advocate. Like, I only think it's helpful if you find the right one. And if you can't find the right one, then you need to be committed to try other things, more alternative things that are going to maybe help you spiritually and emotionally start to find some answers. So obviously, I think therapy could be a good route for that, but um, there's a lot of therapists that aren't worth your time.
Yeah.
You got to, if somebody really wants to see a therapist, like, do some shopping, try out a handful. I think this is just my opinion, but I think you try out 5 therapists, you'll probably, one of those will probably be good.
Yeah. No,
So,
that's fun. I mean, it's funny too, because like obviously, dude, you're the first therapist I've ever met with, and the only therapist I've met with. I'm grateful that I tried. I got a 1-on-1, and I didn't have to go to other people.
well,
And I,
I tricked you. I got you to think I was better than I was. I kept you coming. No, I'm
no,
just,
no, it's great, man, and I love our relationship and our friendship, man. I like obviously I think you as my therapist, but also it's like, dude, I think you as a friend. I was, you just be able to text you, call you, all of our meetings. It's definitely helped me, and I know that I can definitely improve in a lot more ways too. Not perfect, far from perfect, but no, I've seen the value in definitely meeting, and
me too, man. Yeah, I appreciate you. And I'll just say this. I think what I really appreciate about you and a lot of people I see is that, I don't think people realize sometimes what it's like in the other chair for the therapist. It's like, I get to come into work and see people change and see people open up, and like, I'm just kind of a student with you, learning together. It's like, I feel like I'm cheating at life in a lot of ways, being able to learn some really valuable, deep lessons from other people. It's such a cool thing. Just learning with people is just like, there's such a cool bond that can happen.
yeah, I mean, for me, man, I lead a sales team, and dude, it's so frustrating because guys have way more potential, or they're slacking off, or they don't want it, and you want it more than they want it. And then you also see other guys that you help and they learn and they grow, and it's like part of that, man, why I love doing it, my purpose. Like, dude, I love
Totally.
like learning with people, teaching people, helping people. And that's the purpose of my podcast, man. Of I want to get all the information from you and post it out for the world to help people. And with social media in this day and age, like, you're able to reach out to people and touch the world, not just touch people directly. which is why I'm, obviously a big fan for, social media in a positive way, and using it to reach people, because we all need help, man.
Mm. Well, I appreciate you saying that, man. And if I can just put a plug, if you have any listeners out there who are kind of on the fence or wanting to get more direction or just more fulfillment in their life, we do this thing once a year where we do a retreat, and this one's in Hawaii, and it's like 6 days, so it's like October 21st through the 27th of this year, 2023. And what's cool, if you're just kind of unsure, if you're getting started and kind of wanting to improve emotionally or spiritually or whatever in your relationships, it's like, this is a banger. Like, we pack it in. It's like 6 months of spiritual and emotional work in like 6 days. It's pretty cool what you can learn about yourself and what you can see change in that time. And then we also have a good time too. It's not like we're going to be working the whole time. So this is a good mix of some good work, but also like some good play and connecting with some cool people. So yeah,
Yeah. So that's coming up in 3 months. That's October.
coming up in like 2.5 months. Yeah, October 21st. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. And if people are interested in that, what's the best way for them? Because obviously, when I post this up to YouTube, I can put your contact information as well. And
Yeah, just my contact. People can text me directly, and I can fill them in and give them more info for sure.
Okay. No, that's awesome, man. That'd be a great opportunity for people. Now, I want to I want to talk, and towards the end here, about other things that people can do to help with their mental, their emotional, their physical, like, other than obviously seeing a therapist, but life's about action. So, you mentioned things about depression, about people not having enough sunlight, and about obviously your wellness center that you're wanting to create. What would you tell people, like advice, how to increase, your happiness and stuff? What are other things that people can do as well to give them purpose and obviously, impact their emotional state?
Yeah, I'll mention three things that seem to work the best with people that are starting out or wanting to make a change. So one of the first ones is like physical activity. Our body, how we feel, is so connected to how we move our body and what we're doing with our body. And so consistent, I think the goal is maybe one rest day a week or something, but one or two, but the consistent physical activity is so important. Um, and with all the research coming out in the last few years about weight training and strength training, that's coming up, that's emerging as like one of the more important ones for like long term injury prevention and just like staying alive, like being able to like live a long life. Like it's big. So I would encourage that, obviously. So that's a big one. The other one is the other foundational piece is some kind of spiritual practice. Now, I think when people hear spirituality, a lot of times they think of religion. Don't think of it like that if you don't want it. Like, it can be, but that's not what it is. So when I mean spirituality, I mean taking at least 10 minutes every day to um, do something good for yourself. So what does that mean? It means maybe like gratitude. Uh, Maybe that means like prayer or meditation. Maybe that means reading something like a self-help book or like a Bible or scriptures or whatever, or something that's just objectively good. Spirituality is basically um, it's supposed to be a form of connection where we feel connected and where we're learning. So if you're learning and you're growing and you're touching base, you're kind of like checking in with yourself. That's spirituality. Okay, so that's what it's all about. So that some or journaling can be a form of spirituality. So that's a lost practice. People have a hard time seeing the value. It's just like anything. You have to start doing it for a week or two and start making and being consistent. And then you'll start seeing some of the benefits of it. Anyways, so spirituality. And then the third one, I kind of already mentioned this, but some kind of some kind of way where you can start trying to identify what you're feeling, some kind of an emotional check-in every day or every couple days, where it's like, what are some of the negative feelings that have been coming up for me, the last couple days? And I can send you a good little cheat sheet for people where they can, like, if they know they're feeling sad or whatever, they can at least have some kind of a starting point with this. I call it the emotional guide. They can start using this as a way to start helping them know what they need, basically.
Yeah.
So those are the three things, man, that seem to be the best.
Okay. No, that's awesome, man. I'm a huge advocate, of taking care of, your body. And, I know when I'm active in the gym, I feel so much better. And it's creating momentum. You know what I'm saying? Life's about creating momentum. You got to get the ball going, get it going. But when you get going, man, you're on a roll and it's nice.
Yep. Yep.
But when you stop, it's like, it's hard to get that ball back going.
Totally. Yep. You hit the nail on the head, man, for sure.
Awesome, man. Now, before we wrap it up, do you have any more, your life that you've lived as as your specialty of being a therapist and your background, advice um, for people out there that, are entrepreneurs, businessmen, in sales, that are already successful, right? They've already achieved success. They're continuing to achieve success. What would be like your biggest recommendation to them or advice as a therapist?
So as a therapist, I don't know how comfortable I am actually giving advice, Brad. No, I'm just kidding. Um, Honestly, I think, so here's the thing is, like, when things are going really well in our life, we have a tendency to abandon um, grounding and important practices. So the one of the first things that seems to go for people when things are going really really well in their life is this, like, spiritual or emotional check-in. Um, so what the problem with that is that, emotions, the emotions are designed to basically tell us what we need in our life to continue to make progress and to continue to move forward. So if things are going really well for someone and they aren't listening, they stop listening to that. And most people aren't aware that they're not listening to it. They just kind of stop checking in. They stop having some of these practices that we've talked about. Then what happens is, almost every time it happens, they fall on their face. They get humbled really quick. Um, they might still be making good money, but guess what? Their marriage is falling apart. Or they might have a really good marriage, but they're falling on their face in their career. They're just, whatever. So, like, it can come from many different ways, but the fall of man is inevitable when we're not feeding our spirit. You want to think of that. We have two different, we have two people in all of us. We have our physical body, but then we actually have our spiritual body inside of us. Both of those need to get fed. We're good at feeding our physical body with food and whatever, but what are we doing to feed our spirit? Or, if we're not actively doing that, we start, uh, a lot of lack of motivation starts coming around, lower energy, just like we start carrying, our priorities start to get pretty far out of whack. You know, this is
Yeah.
when things, this is when things start falling apart for people.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. I love, like, so you said, like, reading motivational books or self-help books, certain things like that. Like, I'm reading a book called Winning right now by Tim Grover. And dude, every time I read it, I'm filled with positive energy, and like it reinstates my purpose. And I'm like, dude, this is freaking awesome. Or, hey, I got to share this with this person. Or, dude, I read this and it's freaking sick. And it's just to relate to it. And I like that you said that, man, because you're like, not go to church, you know, read a Bible, do this, do that. There's multiple ways to fill that spirituality, but it's
Yeah.
important to fill it. And I really like that, man, because it made sense. Like when I read my books and or I listen to my, my YouTube channels, or I listen to my, my favorite podcasts, that's a sense of that spirituality. Like it fills my purpose and it keeps me going in that positive direction.
Yeah, and I think the main message in spirituality is like, if you're trying something and it's not really working for you, be open to doing something different. You know, and so yeah, and I think people, they don't think about what they can change to have a better experience with what they're already doing, or they lack the openness to try something else. And spirituality is all about being a student and being open, learning from other people and trying to learn from our own emotional experiences. That's a big part of what it's all about. So
Yeah,
you're obviously a good example of that.
I appreciate it, man. I'm far from
Yeah.
perfect, but we continue to try. So, dude, I kind of want to, wrap things up and just go, man, and just kind of talk about everything we've went through. But basically, everybody should try a therapist, right? Everybody should, find your advice was find 5 therapists, meet with them, find the right person. Whether you're successful, whether you're really struggling, we all got things that we can definitely work on to help grow and be successful. Take care of our bodies, right? Take care of our bodies, our spiritual body, our physical body, and then just find out what works for us in that spiritual aspect, and remember to do that, because we have 2 separate bodies. Our physical body and our spiritual body. So just
Yep.
being able to understand that to being happy, and to ultimately, when those whole podcasts just about finding your purpose. Find out what your
Hmm.
purpose is, figure your purpose out, and it's going to give you a purposeful and meaningful life, which is going to lead to happiness. Because your quote, if you could go over your quote one more time, that you said about progress.
Yeah. Yeah. Progress is happiness.
Progress is happiness, man. I love that. Because
That's a good 3 word mantra. And I guess there's an answer. It's progress in things that actually matter. You know, making progress from making going from $5 million to $100 million. I mean, that's cool. But if you having to do that means sacrificing, uh, a lot of important quality time with your family or your friends, like, maybe that's not good progress. Just like anything, there's a way to do that and still have balance. And me included, I think we often trade off, what we're trading off for money or for material things. Is It's not a good trade off.
yeah,
And I think if we died and we could watch a movie of our whole life, we'd be like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Like, what was I
yeah,
doing? But it's all good if we recognize in this now. It's all about you know just continuing to keep going and find our blind spots.
yeah. No, I appreciate it, man. Well, I appreciate everything you've done for me. I appreciate the work that you do for other people, and continue to change, man. And when your book's out, let me know. I need a copy of that. And it was great, man. So I'm gonna